So,
Yuck, yuck.
Looking at IMDb, over the last 5 years, you've been very busy. You've done 5 TV series, 2 TV movies, 3 short films, voiceover work, 1 documentary, 1 album, over 80 concerts, played Scrooge in theater production. So, I sometimes can't get out of bed. How do you find the energy to do that much?
Yeah, well, I've gotten to a point where I'm picking my spots a bit more now. But the thing, mentioning the Bah Humbug that we do at SFU Woodward's, that was a 10-year run. This was our last year we did it. It was quite an interesting, we took the story, of Christmas Carol, but we set it in the downtown east side of Vancouver, which is the poorest, coastal code in the country. In fact, people that come to Vancouver cannot believe the homeless, the situation, and the fentanyl drug use and the deaths. I mean, it's really, and so we take the story, and my Scrooge ran a pawn shop. It was a fence, and quite a nasty guy. And we had a lot of contemporary music in it as well. Some traditional Christmas music and something. And it was really a very interesting production. It was really great to do. But it ran its course, and next year we're actually, the producer and I are working on putting together, at least workshopping a story about the St. Paul's Hospital, which is in downtown Vancouver. We're putting together a play about the emergency room. And so yeah, that's what we're working on now. Questions, anyway? Yes. Speak up. I'm deaf.
Join the club. I watched Ken Byrnes' country music on PBS and was surprised at the number of country musicians who play the blues and bluesmen in the past that major emphasis.
Oh yeah.
Contributors. I was wondering if your experience was as a blues artist that you were influenced by country artists.
Well, one of the albums I had ever said that Wind in the Wires is it's country music. I find them there's opposite sides of the exact same street. As a kid, when I was a teenager, I used to go down. I started out playing the banjo, okay, and I still have a 5-string banjo. I would go in the summer down to Berea, Kentucky, where my dad had a friend. He had worked, and Roland Gaines had moved back down there when his brother died to take care of his mom and their little piece of ground up the holler. Well, that meant something, And I would go, my dad wanted me to understand that chicken and pork chops didn't come wrapped in plastic, okay? So I would go down there every summer for about 6 weeks and hang out and, get up at 4:30 in the morning and milk cows and all that stuff. This is where I found out what a big breakfast was all about. You'd go out and work for about 2 hours and then come back and they'd have this huge spread and, this thing of, waking up in the morning and, just going right to eating. I said, what do you, but after working for like 2 hours, I thought, yeah, man, there's nothing like it. But anyway, but I really got it. And Roland, the fellow, my dad's friend, Roland Weathers, he had been, when he first got out of the Marine Corps at the end of World War II, he had moved to St. Louis to sing on KM1's radio, and he wanted to be a country artist. And he taught me a lot. And I find them, they're so intertwined for me, country music, and as in the Ken Byrnes thing. I mean, you look at Jimmy Rogers, the singing great man, who was recorded with Louis Armstrong. I mean, come on, this is something I'll talk about tonight about the the pinholing music it's impossible really. I mean, this stuff is so intertwined, particularly the stuff that comes out of the blues and country are just, like I say, different sides of the exact same street. And yeah, I've been influenced hugely by a lot of country singers. And the stuff that's going on now, I don't really consider country music anymore. It's like pop music from the '60s with guy puts on a cowboy hat. That's supposed to be country music, but the classic stuff I was a very good. I became friends with Waylon Jennings, and friend of mine was his road manager, and we hung out and got to, you know, worked on a film with Willie, and so yeah, it's, there's no, for me, you know, it's once again that thing I always say, which one of your kids do you love more? Well, you love them both, but you know, they come from the same place and they might be different in this way and that way, but at the same time, they are from the same place, you know. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Questions?
I was just going to ask, how does the new, I won't call it a fad, but the new way of downloading music from like iTunes or whatever, how does that affect artists that are not necessarily the humongous names?
It's brutal, you know, yeah. You know, Spotify and everything that people use, you know, like, you can get a million hits and get a check for $300. You know, it's really a different. I mean, it really has put a lot of guys out of work. And you know, the only way now you can still make some money touring. And I mean, I'm still making CDs because you can sell them off stage, but CDs are like 8 tracks, really. I mean, you know, well, you know, because you know, cars don't have, when you can buy a new car, it doesn't have a CD player in it anymore, as they all used to. And it's yeah, it really has affected, you know, everybody in the music industry, particularly. Yeah, I mean, there are a handful, and really, I mean, you know, like you can count them on one hand, the people who really are still making $1 million, you know, Taylor Swift and Beyonce, and a couple other people you can mention. Other than that, you know, it's a struggle. It really is a struggle.
Kevin?
Had the honor last year of seeing you play live. It was great. Your band was great. You sounded great, and it was a great venue. I want to ask you, what were some of your musical influences when you were growing up? What made you decide, yeah, I want to do that?
Well, you know, I've been singing my entire life. I mean, I have my first 2 memories in my life. We were living on a place on Penrose Avenue, and we moved out of there when I was 3 years old. But I have 2 really vivid memories from that house. And one of them, well, the one was, we had come home from my grandmother's house, which was around this corner. This one has nothing to do with music, and we had been robbed. We got home and there was broken glass, and all the, you know, the house was a mess. My sister Mary Frances, my older sister, had this collection of paper dolls, you know, and they were strewn everywhere. And my mom and my sister were over in the corner crying, and my dad was talking to a cop. And kind of my other first memory in life was Dad was walking in the door, and I was running around in a circle singing Wabash Cannonball, because you know it was on the radio, and then you know, and I sang, if you can believe it, I was a boy soprano, and I sang in the church choir, and when I was like, I guess I was 10, and we did it was an interfaith Christmas concert, okay? So we were there from Our Lady of Mount Carmel Church. Guess what religion we were? And there was a Lutheran choir there, and there was an Episcopalian or Anglican choir there, and then we sang. The music we sang was, you know, from the 8th century Latin, Roman, really, you know, plain song, beautiful stuff, but very specific, and I had a solo to do. But also on the program was there from the Greater Bethlehem Baptist Church, the Reverend Cleophas Robbins. And at the end of the show, I remember this quite well, you know, Mom and Dad asked me, boy, what a night of music, it was great, what do you think? And I said, well, all the music was great, but you know, their God is still alive. and growing up in St. Louis, Chuck Berry lived about 6 blocks from where I grew up, you know, and so we would see him driving around in 1957, and Chuck, you know, sometimes he would stop and talk to us and be really, and sometimes it's like, you know, he could be really a thorny guy, you know. And on the radio in St. Louis, there was, at the one end of the dial, you know, they were playing Patty Page and, you know, all this kind of stuff. And the other end of the dial, there were 2 stations, KXLW and KATZ. And they would have, you know, the DJ Robert BQ Lou Father Times, from who I stole my whole act from Father Times, man. And Spider Burks, Mommy, oh, Daddy, oh, Spider, Bishop on your radio. and so, you know, like, and that, immediately I was, and then also they were playing blues and jazz and you know, like rhythm and blues, you know, the stuff, and that I was just, wow. And then in the morning they would have, you know, and on Sundays, play nothing but gospel music. Brother Columbus Gregory and Brother Leonard Morris would have these shows, and they would, you know, like the Dixie Hummingbirds and the Soul Stirrers and the Sensational Nightingales. And man, this music was so, it just tore me up, you know. And then also this influence when I would go down into Kentucky, and the music just interested me so much. And so I started, I bought a guitar when I was like 11 years old. I traded my train set. I had an HO train set, right? And I sold it all so I could buy this guitar that was barely playable. But, and just started, you know, there was just something in me that had to come out. And that was the way, you know, it got there. It was through music. And it's, you know, really it is, well, I'm going to be doing a thing. I work in Canada with a group called the Music Heals. And it's about, you know, the importance and what music can do for you. I know when I lost my legs, and I still get these terrible phantom pains sometimes, but you know, when I would be at the hospital, they let me go down at night, and I would go down the hall and march and take my guitar and just wail away. And when you got, I mean, you couldn't just hum or whatever, but when you were really involved in the music, when you were, the pain would go away, you know. And it's really, without music, I would, you know, I'd be dead or in the jail or something, because it has just been, you know, my savior, being able to do that. And having that, what it does for me, just the endorphin or whatever it releases within me is something I live for.
I was wondering, your opinions on the Patreon program, which is where people can subscribe to musicians and they get to hear music first.
Uh-huh.
I was wondering if you heard of that or if
No, not really. Not from that. I'll have to Google that. Find out more about it. But yeah, I mean, you know, the thing about, it's funny, this is something I think about now, you know, people talk about, well, we're talking about how music has been sort of demystified, and you know, it's because, you know, before recording, all music was live music. There was no, you know, like it was a live event, it was important, it was part of the atmosphere, it came at you from outside, you know, and it was really, and now, music is like everywhere, even when you don't want it to be. I mean, you know, you're on an elevator or you're sitting on the phone waiting, you know, you've called, you know, oh my God, this stuff, you know, and it goes, and it's been, there's sort of a loss of, I mean, people don't appreciate it. I mean, people who love music, we love music and what it does for us. But I mean, in some ways it really has been cast aside because of, you know, the importance of it is gone, because it's like everywhere all the time. And it's not the very special thing was that, you know, a live, you know, somebody singing or somebody playing, you know, an instrument, an orchestra or whatever, it was always live, it was always in the moment. And now it's just sort of, turn that shit off.
Anything else?
What was your inspiration for Step by Step?
Oh, well, that's a song written by Jesse Winchester.
Well, like, as far as, like, taking that on.
Well, you know, we were looking for material, and I knew Jesse, you know, we had some stuff in common, you know. He's a guy from Memphis who was a war resistor and moved to Quebec in like 1960 or 69 to avoid being drafted, and you know, and wrote over the years, wrote a lot of great music. And I met Jesse, and I mean, he was really a brave cat to move from Memphis, Tennessee to Quebec and get into a band where they were traveling around Quebec, and he didn't speak any French. And you know, just being in that bilingual thing for a guy from Memphis, Tennessee, I thought, wow, man, you got the nerve. But anyway, you know, it's got that whole New Orleans feel, and I mean, there's something about the lyrics and stuff in that too. It really spoke to me, and you know, because that's when you're looking for, you write your own stuff, but you'll hear other music, and some of it will be, oh, that's good, and some of it is like, wow, it's inside of you, you know, it gets right to you. And so that's why we picked to do Step by Step. And having, you know, the Sojourners singing with me on that now, it started out, I've done a couple albums with Steve Dawson, and I wanted, like I mentioned, you know, the Soul Stirrers and the Dixie Hummingbirds, because I love that, what they call quartet music, although generally there was 5 guys in the band, but they still called it quartet. But, you know, and I wanted to do an album. I said, man, I want to do some, you know, real gospel music, some quartet. And being in Vancouver, I mean, it's there's not a whole big African-American community there, but I had a couple of good friends, Marcus Mosley, who had come up during Expo 86. And I asked Marcus, I said, you know, I want to put this together. And Marcus, you know, was born in Rawls, Texas, and then moved to San Antonio. I've moved to California, San Jose, with his mother, and kind of grew up there, but really was rooted in gospel music and was a missionary and this and that and the other. And so we made a couple of phone calls, and Ron Small, who had moved to Vancouver after he'd been in the Air Force. He was in a group called the Pearls, who appeared on the Ed Sullivan Show. And but after he got out of the Air Force, he moved to Vancouver to get away from Chicago. And then Will Sanders, another guy who I had met, who's from Lafayette, Louisiana, but he'd been in the Navy and ended up marrying a gal from Vancouver. So, and Marcus got on the phone, and we put it all together, and we said, hey man, you guys, I want to do, and we sat down and listened to the Soul Stirrers with Sam Cooke, and you know, all that. It's great. It's just the greatest music in the world, really, to me. It just moved me. And so we went into the studio, and we had, you know, and we put some arrangements together, and I wrote a couple of tunes in the thing. We pulled a couple of tunes out of somebody's catalog, and then we finished, and I said, you know, you guys, you can't just walk away from this recording. I said, I'm going to christen you right here and right now. You are the Sojourners, and they're traveling the world now. They've got this whole career going on, you know, and it's but it all started out, you know, with Marcus when we sitting around talking about doing some stuff by the sensational Nightingales. The Reverend Julius Cheeks. Oh man, can this guy sing? You know, when you hear James Brown, you hear Wilson Pickett. Who you're listening to is the Reverend Julius Cheeks from the Sensational Nightingales. You know, and anyway, that's the stuff that inspired me, and it still does. I mean, it's like I say, music is all the time. You hear, and every now and then something will just rip me apart. You know, and there you go. We'll talk about that some more tonight when I'm playing. Vonda?
Yep, and I might be out of the loop because I'm not always online anymore, but are you doing radio at all?
No, the radio station, I had, you know, like 2 different stations in Vancouver that I had, and it was great. I'm having a radio show every week. But both of them went contemporary, went pop. You know, like, because, you know, really commercial radio is about selling advertising. You know, they happen to play music, but really it's about, I mean, it's what television's about too, in a way. It's about, you know, finding an audience that will buy our products.
I mean, and I missed the conversation, I was just having having that conversation with the listener about sharing stories or history about who you were playing.
Yeah, well, that's, you know, that was what I loved, you know, that was one of the reasons I loved having that show, was I was able to like turn people on to stuff, you know, they didn't, you know, so many, for example, maybe rock and roll hits were originally done 20 years ago by African-American artists, you know, who they got ripped off and turned away, you know, so I really like to get into the history of where this stuff comes from and the real thing. And then, like I say, both these 2 stations that we had just ended up getting sold to, one to Bell Corporation, and, you know, they immediately, you know, hits of the 70s and 80s.
Well, and that's what, I have a friend from Florida, Ken Held, he's had a show called The Doo-Wop Shop for the longest time.
Yeah.
On a radio station out of Miami, and now that's what they're playing, the 70s and 80s.
Right, yeah, you know.
And
Yeah.
Ken's like,
It's unfortunate. I mean, there are still, so, you know, like the public radio, still, you know, but there's, you can't make any money doing that.
I just miss that wealth of knowledge.
Yeah. I do. I miss being able to do it. And we're still looking for. I mean, we may be putting a podcast together, which is the way to go, I guess, these days.
Okay.
Okay, I was just gonna ask you, one of the things I've noticed watching reality shows, you know, like The Voice and things like that, a lot of times they do these big old, I just call them orbits.
Yeah.
Where they go up and down.
Yeah.
And those aren't necessarily what I would buy. I mean, they're showy, but they're not what I would buy.
Yeah. Interesting. I went to just last week in Vancouver. You know, Black History Month was the end of the play, and the last night, on February 29th, they had a big concert out at the Chan Center, UBC. Great venue. And it was a fellow, I can't think of his name right now, that was, it was a tribute to Martin Luther King. You know, I thought, okay, we went, and I ended up leaving because that's all it was. It was like Up With People or something. And you know, the guy's got a 5-octave range, which he had to show him every note of every tune that he sang. I'm getting tired. And then they also, as part of that thing, they had one of the guys who says, "Everybody stand up." So they stood up, and anyway, for half the concert, I was looking at some big fat guy's rear end. You know? And so I left. You know, it was like that. This is for the birds. But yeah, but you know, everybody. That's that thing of like, you know, they think that'll make someone or another famous. You know, I just wanted a moment of real. I mean, everybody was just showing off.
Yeah.
And it was not really. I wasn't hearing really any soul or anything on the thing. It was just these people going, yeah, what a voice. Holy cow.
Yes.
You know. But it's a choice. I mean, it's the nature of business and the nature of, you know, a lot of people, they feel that the way to impress is by, you know, being the loudest, whatever, you know, the most of everything, as opposed to just, you know, reaching into yourself and doing something that's true.
The second half of that was, what I have noticed is that, I don't know about other people, but it seems like it's not the people that are, you know, the great choir voices.
Mhm.
I mean, they have great voices, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, but it's people like, I don't know, Rod Stewart. He doesn't have a choir voice at all.
No.
Most of the ones I think that make it big are those that are unique.
Well, yeah, that's part of having a unique, a voice that you can. I mean, so many guys, Rod among them, really started out imitating Sam Cooke.
Oh, yeah.
It's, you know, Sam Cooke is everywhere. You know, like even you know, and Marvin Gaye, who's like probably the greatest singer of that. You know, and there's so many guys who, I mean, Rod, and the guy Steve Perry from Germany. I mean, he was, that's Sam. He was. You hear things in there. He's going. He was listening to Sam Cooke, you know.
Yeah.
And so I mean, there are these certain voices that you're trying to emulate. And over the years, okay, you start as a kid, you're starting out singing, and okay, the stuff that you love. Okay, I love Bobby Blue Bland. I love Sam Cooke. I love him. And so you try to, or Jimmy Reed, or Muddy Waters. And you try to sound like them, but then you realize, I finally, at 72 years old, I'm finding my own voice, right? You know, I'm singing like me, and all those influences are there, but I'm not trying to sound like anybody else again. But it's just the nature of doing that. You know, when you start out, you're trying to imitate people that you love. You know, I love this. I love this sound. I love that song. That's what I want to do. But you can't, because you're not. I'm not Bobby Blue Bland. I'm not Sam Cooke. I mean, but I'm, you know, as an evolution, as an artist, this is what you do. At some point, hopefully, you find your own voice.
Yeah.
I think I found mine.
I think so.
Need it?
Have you ever been approached by somebody after you've done a show, and they were like, I was recommended by somebody, a friend of mine, to come see you, and you were magnificent. Has anyone ever done that to you, or said that to you, and how did that make you feel?
Oh, well, it makes you feel, I mean, it has similar, I mean, not exactly, but that sort of thing has happened, and it's extremely gratifying. I mean, you know, like, because no matter what, I mean, everybody's got an ego, right? Whether you pretend you do or not. You know, there's some part of you that's just, you know, and so when that happens, it's like, it's fulfilling. I mean, you think that this is something you've been striving to do and want to do, and it's great. It just that people, all of a sudden, somebody really gets it. And, because, you know, sometimes, I mean, over the years, playing professionally for 50 years, you play lots of shows where, like, you know, you're like the wallpaper or whatever, you know, and you think you're doing good, but, you know, there's no attention, or, you know, playing where there's more guys in the band than there are in the house. And, like, everybody's done that. And so when, you know, when those moments you have to, you know, you can't let them go to your head, but you can let them go to your heart.
So when you're not in an elevator and you get to go home and pick your own music, what do you pick?
Oh, you know, just a vast array of stuff. You know, I just got back from Havana, Cuba, and that's, I mean, the music in Cuba it's everywhere, and it's those people are so resilient, and I think, you know, what has, well, the last time I was in Cuba, Obama was still president. And there was a U.S. cruise ship in the harbor, and everybody, I mean, you can just feel that things are going to happen. You know, this is going to open up and get a little bit better for us. And now, of course, with our president, you know the guy I'm talking about. I don't say the name. You know, everything has gone back to ground zero, and being with the people, and you can just feel. But at the same time, just everywhere you go, no matter what time, day or night, there's somebody playing music, somebody singing, and this is what has kept them alive, you know. And there's some great beauty in that. So I listen to a lot of that. I love tango music, and you know, and then I listen to old. I still, you know, the old blues records that I love, and to the old gospel records that I love. You know, there's so much, this vast array of, you know, it's fantastic. I mean, it's a gospel music story. This was a bit of 1974. I was visiting I was in Stanton, New Jersey, in New York City, back and forth, and we saw that this guy, the Reverend Alex Bradford, was going to sing at this church in Orange, New Jersey, in Newark. And Alex Bradford had written this song, "I'm Too Close to Heaven," which is famous, you know. I was like, oh man, we're going to see him. So we went, and the New Hope Baptist Church in Newark, and the choir leader was Sissy Houston. Okay, she led the choir there, and so Alex read, and so the choir did a bunch of songs, and then she said, "Oh, I'm going to bring out my daughter's going to sing. This is 12-year-old Whitney Houston. I saw her, this little girl in a white dress, singing His Eyes on the Sparrow, and you know, Oh Great Jehovah, witness me." And this, you know, it's something I'll never forget as long as I live. I mean, you know, this was before any of the famous, but this little 12-year-old girl with this magnificent voice, and you know, her mom being there, so proud. You know, and Sissy, she was, you know, a cousin, Dionne Warwick's her cousin, and you know, that whole family, the Drinkard family, and I got to know Dionne a little bit. I did a bunch of charity variety club shows with her. One time at 2:30 in the morning in a cab to White Castle to get hamburgers with Dionne Warwick. These are the great moments that you remember. So yeah, and there's so, you know, and I try to. There's some new stuff that's happening. You know, actually there's some new country guy, Chris Stapleton and Sturgill Simpson, and some guys that are really, you know, interestingly enough, this friend of mine that was my best friend at grade school, who we got together again through Facebook. I hadn't seen him in God knows how long. His son was in the Navy with Sturgill Simpson, and so kind of a neat connection there. And so yeah, you know, I'm always looking for new stuff, but. And there's just this vast amount of music out there, and more and more all the time. And as bad as I say that, you know, say for example, you know, Spotify is good for business. At the same time, it just the way that the stuff you're able to find and to access and to listen to has just grown exponentially. So, for better or for worse.
Thank you. So I know you were in Ireland
Yes, we went last September. I turned I turned 70. My daughter Kate turned 30, and so it's the 100 year. And we went. And I still have some distant family there. And my grandmother's family still runs a bakery in Galway City. If you happen to find yourself in the Griffin's Bakery for your bread and buns. And but we had once again musically, we had such a fantastic time. Funny, my daughter Kate, who's a production designer, had been shooting a film in the West Cork, and she'd been, she was just, she got home, and her name is Caitlin, her middle name Siobhan, which a lot of people, really don't get. They would, is Seal Han there? But she's, Dad, everybody can pronounce my name. Really felt at home and stuff, and she was having this great time. And they were shooting at a place that's Castle Salem outside of Ross Carberry in West Cork. And the fellow Peter, the castle there was built with Lady Fitzmaurice in 1595 or something. But this guy Peter Daly, his family had owned this property since the late 19th century, and he had these two dogs, a little Jack Russell named Rover, and this big country farm dog, big black dog. Caitlin kept saying Juke, and she kept writing it. One of the Irish guys said, "Oh, his name's not Juke, it's Duke." Duke, but his accent. And so anyway, we just got a year and a half ago. We got a new dog, and we called him Juke. And, like a jukebox Juke. Well, not exactly. It's Irish for Duke. But it was funny. Robin was walking the dog across the street at the beach, across the street from our house. And in Vancouver, and I don't know, here maybe too, but there's these Irish kids, lots of them there, they get these 6-month work permits and they come over and it's part of their, and so this one fella comes up and he's going, "Oh, what a lovely dog you got there, what's his name?" I says, "Oh, it's Juke." And he goes, "Oh, like the Duke's a hazard."
Where I was leading you first with this is you go into the pubs there in Ireland and you get kind of a mix of music in there.
Oh yeah,
country,
yeah, traditional music, yeah, traditional and country music, and you be in a place. It's interesting because everybody will give us a song, and guys will sing, what's off the radio, or they will sing an old Irish tune or whatever. But then there'll be these guys, almost always Americans, who go, "Oh, I don't sing," and the guys look at each other, "Okay," because it doesn't matter if you're a good singer or not. They come on, give us a song. And this is the thing I think everybody, it's like when you're a kid or something, and you get told enough, "Oh, will you shut up?" And you become nervous, you become self-conscious about it, and you think, "I can't sing." And not everybody can sing great, but everybody can sing. I believe that, And I think what happens is, like, as a kid, you just, some people are kind of tone deaf, but that doesn't really matter. I mean, there's something about singing.